Well, I want to welcome everybody to today's webinar of 20 Minutes of Tech, the Touchless Revolution. So I think the keys today is that it'll be a 20-minute, give or take, presentation. Before we get started, I want to just talk a little bit about who we have with us today, and that would be myself and Randy. And Randy, is my presentation showing?
It is.
All right. Well, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself, and then I will introduce myself.
Perfect, because your presentation is showing you see a couple handsome dudes on the screen right now. So I am Randy Montielius. I'm the VP of Technology here at CEC. Part of my role is to make sure that we pick the best technology and solutions to help deliver to our customers. So that's a little bit about me. Garrett?
Thanks, Randy. And Randy, you've been with CEC for how many years now?
Yeah, I knew you'd go there. It will be 38 years next month, so a good long time, right?
That is a long time. I think I was getting ready to start kindergarten around that time. But it just shows you the experience. And I think when people hear about somebody that's been at a company a long time, they think that they're outdated. But I think one of the things that aligns to your title as Vice President of Technology is the fact that you're so innovative. And Randy might even have had the first smartphone that actually hit the industry back in whatever year that was. So, he's all about technology, and he has a ton of it surrounded by him every day. So that definitely lends well to our world.
That's
so
right.
I'm Garrett Chumbley. I've been with CEC for around 22 years through various titles of operational to sales to leadership, and my current role is Vice President of Business Development. So my main focus is really to help customers make good decisions. Everything that we do at CEC is we're very transparent, and it's about making good decisions for you, the customer, to establish these long-term relationships that we build. And if you're new to us, just go through the process with us, and you'll feel what I'm talking about. So before that's enough about me. Anything else you want to add, Randy? I kind of picked on you.
Nope, we're all good.
Perfect.
We're all good.
Perfect. So today's topic is the touchless revolution, and there's a couple things that we're going to talk about. One is just overall entry into a facility, and I think there's always let me stop sharing real quick. You have to pardon my slowness. I'm not the most quick at turning off and on. So I think, there's always a benefit that happens during these situations of crisis. And I think we've seen it with 9/11, obviously a horrible event, but out of that became, an improved security environment that we see. I think when you look at the financial crash, that was obviously a horrible situation, but people focus on, being more efficient, finding better ways to buy, whether it's through software as a service or, a managed systems approach. And I think what we're seeing today is we're going to have an improved of sanitation. I think everything is going to be cleaner, and I think that's a great situation. I think, from a recovering germaphobe, not quite, but almost there. There's three things that I don't like. One is door handles, elevator buttons, and buffets. So I think we've solved all three of those, hopefully, with the new tech. What are your thoughts, Randy?
Well, maybe that means I won't have to pull down my shirt sleeve to grab the handles as I'm walking into places. I don't consider myself a germaphobe, but my habits sure have changed here recently as I have to go into doors and touch things. I can't help but wonder. The only thing I'm willing to touch anymore is my cell phone, because I'm sure there's germs on there, but at least it's my germs, right? My germs are okay.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to you, not to me. But
right. Point taken. So.
All right, we'll get started here. Let me go back and reshare. Screen's okay, Randy?
Yep. So one thing there, I know we talked a little bit about you and I. We probably didn't touch on CEC as a whole. So for those of you who don't know, CEC is a technology systems provider. So we provide all kinds of technology for businesses and organizations to help them secure their facilities, be more productive, communicate better. So just a lot of areas that we're involved in as a company. So with that, let's jump right in.
Excellent. Well, the first category is touchless entry. So as we're looking to go back to work, and how do we do that to keep it safe and, my favorite, sanitary? I think that the systems that we have, and probably that you have installed at your facilities or some of those platforms, already can handle some of these features that we're going to talk about. So the first one that we're going to discuss is a modified touchless intercom. So I think this is something that helps protect your guests, but also your security staff or your employees that are greeting people coming into your site. And now what you see here is actually a standard intercom system, and below that they've modified that system, because some of those devices can be expensive, with a swipe, a hand gesture movement that actually initiate that call button. As you can see on that picture, it's some simple things that they did with signage, swipe sensor to call. Now I wish they would have put like an arrow to point it down, because there's still a level of confusion there. So I think the technology is one piece, but also the process as well as the signage for how to use a modified technology piece like this until it becomes normal. And Randy, do you have anything else you want to add on that one?
No, I like it though. That makes a lot of sense. Why have to push that button at all? Just make that gesture. And I'm sure this would be accompanied with some video so that they could, not only talk to you, but be able to verify video verification of who's there, and then remotely unlock the door if they want to grant you entrance.
Absolutely, and this is a very basic application. Like I said, that can be modified, or in the future, there's actually systems that actually have voice activation, which I think a lot of our systems will probably have an enabled voice activation to it, and I think this might be a similar piece to that. So that's a pretty basic situation. We'll go on to a more robust type of a solution. So the next one is mobile credentials, and this is a system or an application that's been around for a while. When I say a while in technology, that I would say 5 years is where I've seen it really enter the scene, and we've seen some really innovative companies adapt into mobile credentials, for a lot of reasons. Mainly, they were focused on cost effectiveness, or even modernizing their system to attract a new workforce into the world. I think everybody likes using their phones for everything, and I think this is another way to align to that cultural shift that we're seeing with the generations coming up. What it also does is it improves the sanitation of a site. So every card, similar to your phone, everybody has a badge or a card, and when you go swipe that card, more than likely you're touching that reader. And if you have an entrance that has 200 to 1,000 people going through it, which is very common, that means potentially 1,000 people has touched that reader at some level or another, and this allows that to remove all of that contact with that surface. A third one I want to talk about is it improves the duty of care for your site, and I think duty of care is something that we should talk about in almost every application. And what duty of care is as an employer, you have to provide a proper means of safety and security for your guests, your visitors, and your employees that are working at your site. And when you add in a system with mobile credentials, and you've actually developed a plan to say this is why we're doing this, that actually improves your proper duty of care for your potential liability if something did happen. Now I think they've passed some laws to reduce the liability, but that probably is only going to happen through this situation. The next one is going to be on you. So that's where the duty of care needs to take place. Now, most systems that you have, most of your platforms are able to support a mobility or a mobile credential. If not, it's probably time to upgrade. So, systems on the access control side I would say a good lifespan is probably, between 8 and 12 years, depending on what type of system you're working with. Now, the systems that we supply, our two main categories is Linnell or Genetec, and most of you out there would probably have one of those platforms if you've worked with us. Those systems, they just keep going. They're definitely like the Energizer Bunny. So we're able to update software instead of replacing systems. And a lot of the devices that they install in those systems are an open architecture approach. So they're flexible with a lot of different types of systems. Now, the key, mobile credentials is not the save all, right? So you still have the door handle to get through. You have, signage to explain that. So I think when you look at a balanced approach to your overall security platform or a holistic approach, that definitely applies to mobile credentials. So mobile credentials is one of those pieces. So here's an example of what a balanced approach would be. So in this picture, you see that if she had a mobile credential, she could actually walk through that gate. So it's a valid entrance into that facility. It's a secured entrance. As you can see, it's open up. So if there's a security guard sitting behind on my side of this table, if you want to look at it like that, he has good visual surveillance. He can see what's going on. It's a granted access. In this case, this is by Boone Eden, and she didn't have to touch anything to walk into the facility, which again, door handles, elevator buttons, and buffets. Those are the three things you want to stay clear of. In this case, it handles the one of the three. Randy, anything on this?
Well, the buffet, you want to stay away from that so we don't add on the COVID-19 pounds, right?
Right.
But I do like this. As a matter of fact, those clear swing gates, they're clear also so that security guards can see who's approaching and what they're approaching with. There's a security element to that. But I like that when you go through, the entry transaction is all logged in the background. Again, touchless, but all that history is being logged and archived if you ever have to come back to that data.
Yeah, and Boone Eden does a nice job because it's very modern, it's very sleek, and a lot of the enterprise accounts have these installed already. And this is a very proven technology and they're just a great company to be a partner of.
Yes. Here's
another example of another version of a swing gate. In some cases, you can see there's a glass barrier between here, right there. If you can see my mouse. But in other cases, they don't even have a glass there. So the exterior, the revolver on the exterior is the perimeter protection. They would walk into the lobby. There's a security guard to see if something's valid or not. They would go through and using their mobile credential, or in some cases, a facial recognition platform, if you don't have a mask on, to gain access to the facility. So again, it's very sterile, it's very clean, it's very sleek, and they're robust. They last for years. Here's the final version of that, and this is what I was talking about, which is the open speed lane. So there's no glass. All it does is make sure that you have a valid entry into your facility. And it's very open. So it's accepting of visitors and guests, and it doesn't feel like you're walking into a prison. And I think in the corporate world, to balance security as well as flexibility is a challenge. This helps with some of those challenges, but also in the new world, it keeps it sanitary. And one thing that I forgot to mention at the beginning, which was if you have any questions regarding any technology, feel free to enter that in on the Q&A, and we'll try our best to get back to you. Randy?
Yeah, so one thing that you're probably seeing out there or going to see is that this, like the picture here depicts, this is going to be the new normal. You're going to see that organizations are going to be screening their visitors and employers, or excuse me, and employees for, signs of fever. Of course, they're doing this because they want to create this safe work environment. They want to attract, customers and things like that. So there's a big push to implement infrared cameras in these types of situations. And as such, the camera manufacturers are, struggling to keep up with the demand for this. So anyway, you want to move to the next slide there, Garrett? Garrett's in control today. But so even though, fever detection is the buzzword, what we're really measuring here is elevated body temperature. And the reason is that just because you can't really judge whether somebody's got a fever by that temperature, but it could be a sign of a fever, right? But the elevated body temperature is one symptom of that. But ultimately, this is the ultimate contactless screening, right? We're not touching anybody. As a matter of fact, typically you're going to want to run your employees and visitors through. They're going to come through. They're going to be at approximately an 8-foot distance. So everybody's safe from that social distancing guideline scenario and such. Now, if they were to display some elevated body temperature, they would go on to a secondary evaluation. But in general, the majority hopefully pass through. It's that concept of frictionless entry. they move through. But again, everybody's at a safe distance, contactless type process. So, and you're probably, we've kind of added this only because you're going to see a lot of this. Now, what you're going to see promoted a lot is this scenario. I've seen it a lot already where you've got multiple people moving. Now this is good from an advertisement standpoint, but the number one issue is really accuracy. And really, when you look at this ad, what it's really would almost give you the impression that you'd be able to measure multiple people, multiple moving people at varying distances, and that you'd be able to measure them down to 1/10 of 1 degree Fahrenheit, judging by the, the decimal point there. But as we've done our research here, this is probably something that's actually hard to achieve. In actuality, one of the big things that will vary your accuracy is the distance between a subject. So what we've been doing is trying to set it up where everybody is measured at a fixed distance from the camera imager. It's one person at a time. They're not moving. That's how you build up the accuracy, because you don't want to have a bunch of false positives, and then you're, subjecting people to, incorrect readings and things such as that, and running them through secondary screening unnecessarily, not the way you want to approach it. The other thing that we do in our scenarios is we try to incorporate a fixed heat source. It's one of the things that really improves the accuracy, because it gives the imager a fixed element, usually 98.6 or something, that it can trigger on, and then it can compare the measurement of the subject to that. And then the last thing, we look for systems that will measure not just like the skin temperature at the forehead, which a lot of the lesser expensive ones do, but measure the inner tear duct. Medically speaking, that's called the canthus. Now, I'm no Dr. Garrett, but I did learn that terminology. But certainly that inner tear duct is where it's a much more consistent measurement point, whereas the forehead, if you can imagine you're coming in out from the cold weather or something, that's going to have effect, and therefore that's going to affect your accuracy. So anyway, the other last thing I want to say about this picture and looking at this ad is, when I look at that, if I were in charge of restricting people from coming into my facility, and I had to go after, I think it's the one turned to the third one over that's got the red box around them, I don't know that I could confidently go into that crowd and confidently grab the right person and extract them from that group of individuals. So clearly this is not the setup. We do have ideas on how this should be set up. And if you're interested in that or other things, why give us a call. We did our 20 minutes of tech feature last week was in fact on this. So you can find that, I think, on our website in terms of if you wanted to go back and watch it. So, Garrett?
Excellent. Well, the next one is just site management. So I think when you're looking at managing your site, we've talked about how to gain access and how to enter safely. The other one is how to be compliant when you have restrictions that are somewhat newer. In some cases, they're 0.25% occupancy, some are 50%, but it's also just a good idea to know how many people are actually in your facility. So the system right here, this is from the Genetech platform, and what they do is they allow us to automatically track building occupancy. So I think when you look at either Home Depot or Walmart, you have the, used to be the greeters, now they're the clickers. So they click how many people are coming in and how many are going out, and you stand in line until you get there. This is a way to automate that, and I could see some of those processes being automated in the future, where you might have a green or a red light that's automated by technology, so I know when I can enter to keep the overall occupancy down. We just don't know what the future brings, but I think in this situation, there's benefits beyond just the standard, COVID era that we could generate into your world. I think knowing your busy times automatically would help you shift staff or reduce your overall security cost. If you have a busy time, if you can see on the graph here, the one that says 78 on it, there's a little uptick of curve there. If we know that there's consistently upticking in visitors, then we can adjust our staff, bring a part-time person on between 11 and 1 or whatever that looks like, to make sure that the experience of our employees our guests and our visitors are still really great. And at the end of the day, we're looking to keep your staff safe. So that's one of the main values of that, Randy.
Yep. So Garrett, along those lines, I just heard that Home Depot now is monitoring how many people are in their store, and if they get to a certain point, they're going to hold people back and not allow the number of customers beyond a certain point. I could see this coming in handy for them.
Definitely, yes. And I think they're the ones that are staying open, those essential companies. But I could see this evolving into everything else. So I think eventually you might even have oversight from the local government to be able to see how many people are in a building and how many people came in and came out during a certain time as regulations improve or get stricter, I guess. Not
Sure.
improve.
If you ever had to prove it, you've got the data right there.
Exactly. So I think one other thing that we're looking at is, so we partner with Splan, and they're on the visitor management side. And what they have done is, as a free add-on, if you have a Splan visitor management system, they call it the ViRiskit assessment. And I can't help but laugh because it's like ViRiskit.
Creative.
Yes, it's very creative. ViRiskit when you have Splan. So the Splan is a free bolt-on or this feature that allows your guests before you set up a calendar invite through your Outlook, you send it out to your visitors, and they would actually commit or submit an automatic questionnaire. So it improves duty of care. It qualifies if the person is not sick before they enter your site, and it removes some liability that you might have by protecting your site, but also protecting your overall health of your environment. And it also knows that you care about the people that you're working with. So this does a lot of different things. So I think Splan is very innovative and it's very simple to use. So if you have questions about visitor management, it's definitely one of those things that I think a lot of people are struggling with. And I see a lot of people moving to new platforms as these systems have evolved to such a great, flexible type of an approach. And if you're really interested in it, on the 26th of this month, I'll be conducting our Tech Talk of 20 minutes of tech on visitor management specifically. Here's another example of what they can do. Oh, I got a timer on that one. So they can configure the number of visitors that can only be at the site. So in this case, you see the little splash over the magnifying glass that there's already 10 visitors. You have to wait. So they have modified their system to allow it to configure it 15 minutes prior and 15 minutes post meeting. It also allows you to stay on time if you know that you're keeping other visitors from entering. So
Sure.
Get your meeting in and move on. So I think that's another thing that they've done. Again, existing platforms, existing technology, just a little modification of the approach, which I think is what was great on the security world. We have a lot of different applications out there, and sometimes it takes something like this to open them up and let people see the values of them. And then once they see that, it stays around for a long time.
All right. Well, we've talked a lot about, what it takes to get into an organization and how you're going to be able to do that without touching anything. But, once you're in the building, once you're in your facility, I think there's some other options. And there's one last area that I want to talk about, and that is collaboration. So there's a product, a wireless presentation product. The one we're highlighting here happens to be called the Air Media product, which is by Crestron. There are others, but what this does, it's a device that you can basically marry up to a monitor or projection screen, and what it does is it hooks up to your Wi-Fi network. And your monitor would always have that splash screen, like in that lower picture there. And it mentions to begin your presentation, just enter in the address at the top of the screen. You could enter in by putting in the IRL, the HTTP code there. Or the other thing you could do, most people in the organization would already have the Air Media app. And what you would do is you would just launch that, and you can plug in a 4-digit code, which is up at the upper right-hand corner of that monitor. And once you do that, you can suddenly share content. So whatever's on your PC, you can share it to that monitor. You didn't have to plug in any cord. You didn't have to touch any cord. You didn't have to push any buttons. It's really instant like that. And I've seen some organizations where all of their open collaboration spaces, this is what's on the monitors at all times so that anybody on the fly can come in and just start collaborating. And you can also logo this screen if you'd like to, where it shows your own company logo. But you know, how often do you get to go into a room and share your screen content without pushing buttons and plugging things in? So I really like that. I could see where this is going to be something that's going to be, you know, things that people adapt even more and more as they want to make their stuff touchless, right? So anyway, that's what I've got.
Excellent. And just a quick note, we recently were interviewed by Security Magazine, and they talked about some of the things that our organization, and there was a good interview with Kim Lehrman and on that side of it, as well as our Managed Systems program, which is a tool that's going to allow you to improve your business, and the way you manage your overall technology is a lot easier than what it is today. And that was actually an award-winning approach, you know, that was really spearheaded by Tyler Ebnet, our VP of Sales and Marketing. And then I was in there discussing some of the security implications and how MSP is being really, you know, improving these customers' technology platforms. So that was, we were all mentioned in that Security Magazine article, sorry, and that should be on our website, if not on our LinkedIn page. And that's kind of all I had today. So I appreciate everybody's involvement. And let me look at the Q&A real quick. And it looks like we've answered all questions with our amazing presentation, Randy. So there's no question.
That's right. We went a little bit over, but hopefully everybody found it worthwhile. I appreciate everybody joining.
Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.
Thanks.